Good morning, dear fellows from the international publishing industry. We were invited today to share a glimpse of the particular market of Japan and its digital evolution in the last 10 years. In Japan, digital publishing has been historically a complement of the major strong industry of physical books and magazines. Manga comics have been the driver of digital publishing for over 10 years. But last year, for the first time, digital comics sales and revenue reached at and exceeded the physical comic books even faster than I imagined. Until now, smartphone support contributed to the rapid growth, and piracy is the main challenge nowadays. Comics in the entertainment has other competitors for attention seeking in the leisure industry. As a result, the future vision will be to create a world of diversified experience. Virtual reality, user experiences, interactivity. Comic will not be limited to a reading experience. I'm happy to share information on this specific market. Passing the mic to Yuria, who will take you to Japan for a few minutes, and later, during the round table, Kazuyuki Masuda, who will focus on the digital manga comics. Thank you. Please, Yuria.
So, good morning, fellows. Let's talk about us first. Viz Media Europe is actually the European branch of Shogakukan, Shueisha, and Shopro, which are the major publishing companies in Japan. Not only comics, it's actually Shogakukan started in 1922 as the main educational textbooks and encyclopedia and dictionaries in 1922. And later we have Shueisha, which followed in 1926, branched out Shueisha from Shogakukan, which was publishing more entertainment magazines, and it's mainly targeting younger demographics. The Shogakukan Shueisha Productions Shopro, abbreviated Shopro, is actually the merchandising and animation company that uses all the worldwide licensing of, for example, you have heard of Pokemon, Hamtaro, Yokai Watch, Doraemon. So they treat mainly the properties of the two mother companies. We're talking about revenues for each publisher, about, let's say, $1.4 billion for Shogakukan, about $1 billion for Shueisha. In Shogakukan Shueisha Productions, the annual revenue is about $273 million. This is just to show you what we do. In the contextual big publishing context, this is from 2015 as the equivalent aggregated data was only available for us to show you the scale of our Japanese market size. So this is the perspective. We are talking about here, actually digital even For 2017, we'll go deeper, but this is really mainly to show you the scale we're talking about. So one question for you. Who's been to Japan? Raise your hands. Ooh, okay. Did you like it? Not if you did. Wonderful, thanks. Okay, so just a reminder then, population. It's mainly all Japanese people, but it's 126 million people. And we chose this photograph because it's very representative. They're big readers, as you understood, on all formats. And the actual geography is really interesting. It's a group of islands at the end of the world. So it's very, very far from here. And generally, it's represented like this, but it's a really, really long stretch from north to south. So very different climate and very volcanic, so mountainous, and very, very naturally hostile islands. And all the data, market data, is actually an aggregation from major cities. So we wanted to show you in all these major cities, the GDPR is quite high, and there is culturally very, very traditional and very modern coexisting in this group of islands. So one point you have heard in the news, and you've been to Japan, so you know, the population is aging very fast. Babies are decreasing, meaning that the population is just aging. So this is the main difficulty this country is facing. So another overview of the Japanese media industries. Again, it might be difficult for us from a European perspective, but the books and magazines in Japan, the data was collected only from after World War II, so from the 1950s. And now we're talking about books and magazines, so we're not going into detail in electronic books or digital magazines, but we're talking about 99 billion euro for Japan. So this was to give you the scale and also the timeline. I don't know if you can see, but from 1945 to this stops at 2015-16, but as you can see the bumps of different internet advertising and the mobile phones peaking after 2010s in green, light green. So the books and magazines are in yellow and orange. So you can see in the context of Japanese media, it's low, and other attention-seeking sectors are actually taking over. And we'll see this later on. So I don't know how many of you have actually tried to sell your titles or books in Japan, but we wanted to give you really highlights of the specific characteristics of Japanese publishing distribution. This is mainly paper. We're discussing physical books and magazines. So the main specific protective law is the anti-monopoly law and the resale price maintenance system and consignment sales system. So this protects mainly the players. As you can see, you have fixed price. We're talking about books, and I will go into later deeper into e-books, but Here, you have a fixed price and a returnable, which is completely equal. So this is how the industry survived. Even though, as you will see, is declining, the margin is maintained, although it's almost half of what, for example, US margin could be. It was maintained for many, many decades, thanks to this system. Now, the main specific for Japanese paper book distribution is that it has two main players, and it's Nippon Shuppan Hanbai, which is friendly abbreviated into Nippon, and Tohan Corporation, which is Tohan. And they dominate about 60% of the distribution market all over those islands, even in the regions. So, and the rest is direct or other specific. But when you want to distribute in Japan, you either say either Nippon or Tohan. There aren't many other choices. And we'll discuss that later, the change for digital books. Regarding this, we wanted just to simplify for you the explanation of the system. So the bookstores can discount from cover price after a certain period that publishers had limited. So there is a time-limited RPM, which is used in combination with the contract of incentive and penalty. So in other words, what we want to say is this applies to domestic Japanese books, but this does not apply to, for example, e-books, second-hand books, periodicals, foreign books, and periodicals and journals. So this is our main point. Now, sales trends. Here, we wanted to show you the very sad and gloomy, which is worldwide. The trend in Japan as well. This is the book market, so as you can see, it incorporates books, e-books, magazines, which include also e-magazines. So in light gray, you can see that the trend is declining. Magazines are definitely drastically trending to the decline. And as you can see with the red arrow, the digital is slowly trending upwards. So we have pretty good news later to announce to you, but we can see a glimpse of hope in the industry for digital. So the explanation, you have to excuse us because the unit and the currency, the calculation, I wrote it here because in Japan you talk about 100 million yen, while we in Europe we talk about billions or millions. So I just converted for you roughly the figures so that we don't keep repeating. But let's say today, if you talk about 10,000 yen, you can think about 77 euros, just to give you a rough idea for mental conversion. So we will go later in detail regarding what happened and why. But in 2017, the major highlights we can tell you is that a major group called CCC Group, mainly led by Tsutaya, had a major acquisition of historical magazines like Tokuma Shoten and Shufu no Tomo. And this is a major milestone in the magazine industry in Japan because there were big titles and historical. So there are mergers and acquisitions happening in Japan as well. And in this trend, what we focused is mainly the promotion changed in publishing, meaning that, for example, 30 years ago, you wouldn't have a linear TV commercial about a book. But in 2017, there was this new campaign about a title called, how shall I translate? It would be, I'm 19 years old, so what's the joy, what's fun, what's great about it, published by Shogakukan. And it sold 1 million volumes. So we wondered why, and the promotional actual campaign focused on TV. So this was very new in Japan. And apart from social media, Twitter and Line, and influencers. So we thought that was a very interesting highlight. And now we also understood that the digital is actually helping physical books in Japan, especially in education, illustration, kids' books, and for high school and magazines. So these are the main takeaways we will look into a bit later. So in 2016, the newspaper Mainichi had a major survey regarding e-books. So these are the results, and it's really interesting to see that in 2016 in Japan, not many had actually read an e-book. But if you think about it, the survey targeted 30s, 40s, 50-year-olds reading the newspaper. So that is also interesting in retrospect. And the reader's age displayed, as you can see, the majority is 30s, 40s, and still is. The contents we'll look into deeper later. It's comics and novels. Novels also meaning not just romance or literature, but also books about business, self-help, and lifestyle. And regarding device, we'll look into it deeper later, but still is the smartphone, the device that is used in Japan, as our colleague said just before. Also in Japan, it's smartphones and iPad nowadays. And I'll take you back even earlier, 10 years before, or even 20 years earlier in Japan, there was only mobile and PC. And mobile, I remind you, in Japan, there was a foldable flap mobile phone that really escalated and developed in those days. But all of a sudden, with the advent of internet and smartphones and iPads, everything really changed for e-books and digital books in Japan. So comics. Another question for you. Have you read manga before? Whoa, thank you. Okay, so I will not go deeper into the history of manga then. You know that manga is comics. It's actually historically means whimsical sketches. So it's a caricature of politicians, of very powerful people, so it's mainly caricatural drawings. And nowadays, after many, many centuries and years, it's an industry in Japan. So here we wanted to highlight the breakdown of the e-books in Japan. Again, forgive the 100 million yen unit, but as I said, we want to focus on the little red arrow. So in the global Japanese publishing for digital. Comics, so manga, e-manga, are actually the major share, hold the major share. So, very good news, happy news. It's a huge milestone in the history of this industry, e-manga. Just hold your horses, I'm talking about digital comics, not the digital publishing on the whole. So in digital comics, the digital comics have actually overtaken paper comics. So this is really, really the first time ever in history in Japan also. So as you can see, it's a big news. It's good news. The studies regarding this is that 77% almost is comics. About 13 is, let's call them books, literature, as I said, in general. And about 9% is magazines, e-magazines. So the main takeaways for us here is that, as you understood, magazine really drove the Japanese publishing industry. It was decreasing, and now magazines are actually stronger in digital version. So, for example, you can note the magazine, the hyphen magazine, is led by NTT Docomo, so it's a telecommunication company. They hold about 600 titles of current Life magazines, of about 2,415 periodicals in Japan. And just note that you saw the population, and about 3 million users, approximately, use the magazine, which is enormous if you think about it. And the second company is Kodansha with Magazine Pocket. And later, Kazuyuki will introduce you to Shonen Jump by Shueisha. But we'll see this later if we have time, but the main takeaways we are sure are good news for you. So we pointed out it's about 1 billion, 2 billion, but nearly 2 billion, so it's good news. Now, we don't have much time, I think. Okay, so unfortunately, we're running out of time, but Kazuyuki and we will be able to answer your questions later if you want at the cocktail or at the coffee break. But we have, as we said, with smartphones means manga apps in Japan. So the main business model we analyzed were free comics and advertising scheme. So this is probably your main takeaway today. Now, on the big chart in the infographics, we try to summarize the different business models, and there are some new ones emerging, being tested. But what probably you want to focus on is the free-to-play, which is interesting. Free-to-play, it has two styles. It's free browsing. So if you remember, when you go to the bookstore, you just read books for free. You browse. But then the bookshop keeper will chase you and say, why don't you buy it? So this is the model. So it's an upgrade. So you browse for free, but then if you want to read more, you pay. Then you have the free-to-play ticketing, which for us it could be vouchers, meaning that you buy as you want to read a bit more, so you buy tickets per chapter or per book or per volume. So it depends on the apps and it depends on the title, but there are different, obviously there are different specs, but these are the two, as you can see, you have many that actually apply this type of business model. Then you have the 100% pay and the subscription. So one highlight we wanted to stress was that there is a new type of experiment is you start reading and you wait until it's free, meaning that you earn points, you start reading and then you earn points, and then it will be free. So this is another new scheme that is being tested, so maybe next year we will let you know if it works or not. So later, Kazuki will take you deeper into these kind of apps as well. But here you can see that the first one, nowadays Pixiv is also from South Korea, but is penetrating in Japan as an app, and it's all manga. So this is all comics, just to remind you. So very quickly, reading devices. So as we said, smartphones. And it used to be phones, and now also PCs and PDAs. And almost the whole population is connected. So about 120 million internet users on all devices. And you have over 200 e-book stores of different origins from publishers. So overseas, you will recognize Kindle, iBookstore, Google Play Books. But in Japan, you also have all the players, meaning printing companies, bookstores, mobile phone companies. You have pure e-book stores. You have distributors or aggregators like Yahoo and Rakuten. And you have also other alliances, but we don't have time to talk about it. So just roughly the genre. So what's being read, as I said, it's comics. The bestseller here, the takeaway, is that paper manga is actually the #1 seller for paper books, was a manga in 2016 and 2018. So in June 2018, we can say that Kimi tachi wa dou ikiru ka? How will you live? By Kenzaburo Yoshino was #1. And also, it reflects that manga is also a big driver in paper books. So, anti-piracy, yes. Piracy is the main challenge in Japan for digital books. It's the same worldwide. So in 2015, these major publishers formed an alliance in Bangkok, where it originated. Piracy originates mainly. And they actually move and act directly from there. So I wanted to show you a video just to finish off, but I'm struggling. I'm sorry. Can I have some help to play the video? Okay. Yeah. So this is a promotional video from Square Enix. It's a gaming company, but is experimenting augmented and virtual reality. So if you're interested in testing the device, they will be coming to Animagic in Mannheim in August, 3rd till 5th of August. So you're welcome to visit them at the booth. if you have questions, we wanted to say that this is probably, maybe you've already visited Miraikan, but it's a museum in Japan, in Odaiba, where it shows you how Japanese people see their life in 2050. So probably the books will be interactive, will be probably augmented and immersive. So probably this is where the industries will mix and possibly positively work together. There are the initiatives, and if you want more information, you can contact us here. We're based in Paris now, so you can reach us easily. Thank you.
Thank you very much.